I'll cook here in just a minute. Whew, that's hot. Oh yeah. That's the best. Go. Whew. Is it Tabasco? No, not at all, because I don't have a steamy warehouse in the bayou full of. Probably put on some music. Why is that not green? What's up with that? before I can cook, I have to have a cup of tea, or at least make a cup of tea and have it available during the cooking process. And now I'm out of cream. Going to the store tomorrow, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. Tea, drink of the gods. What else do I need? Knives. Spatula. Whoops. Absolutely.
Where did I put that?
What do I need? I need a vegetable peeler. Hi folks, I'm about to start cooking my dinner. I'm going to do a old school sausage casserole, but let me go turn off Strauss first. I was really finding some good background music that's royalty free, but I don't quite know where to look for that. So if you guys know anything, send me a message down below. Free streamable music without getting into hot water with YouTube. So it's cold up here. It's winter. I'm drinking tea as always. And the question came up in some of the food forums, some of the cheap eating, frugal eating, eat cheap and healthy forums. How do you feed 4 hungry people, or 1 hungry person 4 times, with 2 sausages? Well, I've got an idea for that. Back in the 60s and 70s, there were recipes for this all over the lifestyle magazines, the Sunsets and Southern Livings and those kind of things. Basically, it was an answer to the newly invented rice-a-roni. Everybody's seen the rice-a-roni commercials, the San Francisco treat that back at the time everybody in San Francisco said, we've never heard of this stuff. We don't know what it is. It's basically a pasta company owner, an Italian immigrant. Actually, I think it was the son of an Italian immigrant in California, in San Francisco, invented this combination after getting inspiration from an Italian recipe. I think his wife was Italian. I think that's 1958 is when he invented rice-a-roni, if I'm not mistaken. While there are pasta and rice recipes in Italy, they're just not that common or not that highly regarded. It was basically him coming over and turning it into a convenience food, or a home convenience food. Back then, people were just starting to get free time to cook in their homes, but not enough free time. They were starting with the 2-income households. There was this whole slew of quote-unquote convenience products, everything from Jell-O to Dream Whip for people that didn't think they had time to whip cream. And this is the kind of product that came out of that. They called it a rice and pasta pilaf. But anyway, after those came out, all the lifestyle magazines started making their own quote-unquote fresh version. And this particular idea hit my family really in the soft spot. We love the stuff. It was basically sausage, green bell pepper, onion, and celery, which is the trilogy from Cajun Creole cuisine down in the Deep South. And that's the recipe that we've used for so long. But quite honestly, you can only make 1 pan of it a year, and then you get tired of it. So I try to mix it up with the other, with the vegetables. Basically, it's still a rice casserole, rice and pasta casserole, but instead of using heaps and heaps of sausage like the original, I just use a little bit of sausage, and I'm going to add some other cheaper protein, I'm going to use garbanzo beans because garbanzo beans are cheap. Which brings me to cost. How much does all of this cost tonight? I just did the math before I started the camera. $3.62 Canadian. Yes, I included the 2 cents for the salt. $3.62 is going to make this pan just packed full of food. That's enough for 4 people. Or, as I say, it gets better the next day. So you can feed yourself 4 times or 2 people twice, or however you want to do the math there. It's not paella. It's not anywhere even close to paella, but it is still a rice casserole. It's not Italian. It's not rice-a-roni. It's not American. It's just a hodgepodge, basically. So I'm going to try to show you some technique. Anyway, let me just get right into cooking here. Let me get my tea out of the way. Got my big, heavy cast iron skillet. You do want a skillet that is relatively shallow. I've done this in a Dutch oven, and it gets too stodgy and just not appropriate. You want something relatively shallow. If I had a nice brazier, I'd use that, a cast iron enameled brazier, but I don't have a brazier. I haven't found one I like yet that doesn't cost $1 bazillion. By the way, this is a cheap, generic enameled cast iron. It works every bit as well as my expensive enameled cast iron. I've got a pan that's almost like this from a quote-unquote brand name, and I'm not going to name names because I've had a bunch of failures from them. I'm really not happy with that company at the moment. They wanted $400 for that pan. This pan cost me on Boxing Day $16. $16 for enameled cast iron. I don't care if it fails in a year. It's worth $16 to me. But this one's going strong after 3 years. Anyway, let's get some sausage. Now, normally I make this around the time I'm doing a batch of homemade sausage. This is homemade sausage. I make my own because it's cheaper and I can control what goes into it. And normally I would just use fresh ground pork and season it right in the pan. But these were the last 2 lonely sausages in my freezer. And so I'm going to go ahead and take them out of the casing. If you want to use the casing and cut it up into chunks, that's fine. But I get better flavor through the whole dish by taking it out of the casing. Say it's a bit of a waste of the casing, but it's about time for me to make a new batch of sausage. The farmer up the road gets me really nice pork, his own animals, and I know they were raised right and treated right, so that's what I usually do when I go for a little bit of pork. I do eat. I don't eat a lot, but we're going to get that rendering down. Let me wash my hands. And you specifically want to cook in the same pan. It's not just a convenience thing, but you want that rendered pork fat, and it's going to need a little bit more oil. That's what I'm putting in there, just plain old vegetable oil. You want that rendered pork fat in the same pan because, again, every last drop of it's going to get absorbed by the rice and pasta. Just going to break it up as it starts to cook. It would help, I guess, if I turned on the heat, right? Come on. As it starts to cook, it'll break up a little bit easier too. When you're using these cast iron pans, you want to be careful because the heat doesn't dissipate very quickly. So basically you can overheat really quickly and burn something if you're not careful. Remember that the quickest way to get the heat isn't to turn it down, is to take it off of the heat. So move it if you go overboard a little bit, but basically just try to ease up on the temperature, ease into the temperature, I should say. Gonna get my meaty board out of the way here. The other thing I'm going to do for that same $3.62, what is that? $3.62 Canadian is $2.85 US, under $3 US. For that same amount of money, since I've got all the same ingredients out and I'm working, I'm going to make, for the same money, a jar of salsa. I'm not going to call it fresh salsa because the tomatoes this time of year are out of a can, but it is a perfectly useful, usable salsa. It's just not cooked down like a lot of the jarred salsa you see. I'm going to make you a whole jar of that while I'm doing this. 2 for 1. It's like make the sausage casserole, get the salsa free. I bet you a little of the salsa on top of the casserole would be very lovely. So next, since I'm right here and I'm going to use the machine anyway for the salsa, I'm not going to hand chop everything. I'm just going to use the machine. But I want you guys to notice, because this will become important later on, that I'm saving all of the trimmings. Those trimmings become my free vegetable stock every week. Every Sunday, I take them, I keep them in the fridge in a mason jar, but every Sunday I just throw them into a pot, cover them with water, put in a spoonful of Marmite, and boom, I've got free vegetable stock, nice, rich, deep vegetable stock with stuff that would otherwise get thrown away. Why wouldn't you? And even after you've made it into stock, you can throw the spent leftovers from that. You can throw those into the compost heap because you're not adding any meat to it. Don't add anything that's had meat. Don't put that in your compost bin. Get these onion skins off. Now be that control on the heat there. I want it to color. I want to know that it's getting seared. So don't worry about those extra crispy bits around the edges. Hope you guys are having a good holiday season, wherever you are. It hasn't snowed here yet much. It's got a little dusting on the ground, but I don't know if we're going to have a white Christmas like we usually do this year or not. It's kind of a toss-up at this point. It's certainly cold enough. It's minus 14 right now. So yeah, minus 14 Celsius. So it's certainly cold enough, but we just don't have any precipitation in the air. So here's my saved trimmings. Just grinding down or chopping down the onions real quick. I use my food processor a lot. I know some people keep the food processor in their closet and only pull them out on rare occasion, and I think that is why people don't use them so much, because they've got to haul them out and they've got to get them set up. If you have it out and ready to go, you'll find all kinds of great uses for it, like making YouTube cooking videos. These ends off. That sausage is just about rendered where I want it. So I'm going to go in with, I've got 2 onions worth here, but remember I'm making you salsa, so I'm only going to use about 1 1.5 onion. I'll leave about that much in for the salsa. Now that sausage was already seasoned. It's got the usual suspects, sage and pepper and a little bit of red chili, those kinds of things, a little bit of garlic in there. But if you were using fresh pork, you would want to season it however you see fit. I'm always a big fan of sage. I'm just watching an episode of one of Jacques Pepin's shows. I'm not sure which one it was. One of his recent shows, and he was talking about how he saves all of his kitchen scraps to make stock every week. So those onions are going to sweat down. They're going to pick up that fat that is rendered out of the sausage. We need just a little bit more oil in there. I want to get some garlic in there. My garlic is just about sprouting, which is unfortunate for cooking, but great for the garden. You can take garlic that has started to sprout and go straight, in fact this one has sprouted, you can go straight into your garden with it right now. This time of year, garlic needs 8 weeks of winter weather to form really nice fat heads in the spring. So you plant it now and you forget about it till next July. It does everything on its own. Here is the single oldest device in my kitchen, a Susi brand garlic press. I bought this when I was in high school, I think it was 1982. And it still works better than any new one that's been given to me over the last 15 years. I don't even know if they still make this particular model, but if you see one at a flea market or an antique store, buy it because they don't make them like they used to. I'm also the first person to tell you that you don't really need a garlic press. You can just go get a rock and bash the heck out of it. Or my favorite device thing, I'll show you my favorite garlic bashing device. This is Canada. You can bash garlic using a hockey puck. Just back, and you're done. And it cleans off really easily. So there you go. Use a hockey puck. They cost 3 for $1 up here. Go to Canadian Tire and they'll give you a big bag of the thing. Give them out to your friends and say that they're gourmet, Canadian gourmet garlic presses, hockey pucks. Okay. Now I want to get this carrot in there. Actually, before I go too much farther, these 4 chilies are what's going to go into my salsa. Little tiny bird's eye chilies. I'm not going to put any into the sausage casserole just because I think there's enough seasoning in there. We'll put some of the salsa on top afterwards. Just get a little tiny bit of water. Just a tiny splash of water just to get that fond off the center of the pan. Now here is my homemade stock. I told you it was nice and dark. And again, all it is, boiled ends of vegetables with a little tiny spoon of Marmite. That's it. That's the whole recipe. Get these knocked down just a little bit for the salsa. These little bird's eye chilies are, I don't know why, but the machine doesn't seem to catch them quite as easily as they should, so I just manual chop. Those go into the salsa. Seeds and all, because I like it hot. Let's cut this carrot down. I'm on a 2 out of 5, 2 out of 6 temperature now, so that's probably a medium low. Bad spot on the carrot, but it will make perfectly fine stock. Yes, I could do these in the food processor as well, but it's only 1 carrot, so manual override for the carrot. And again, remember, you could go green bell pepper and celery. You could go tomatoes, more tomatoes if you wanted, instead of the few tomatoes I'm going to use. I'm actually not going to put tomatoes in this. I'm going to use the tomato juice to soak up into the rice. But any vegetable of opportunity, I made this with squash and zucchini before. Any vegetable of opportunity, as they say. You guys can say hi too, you know, I can see the screen from here. I may not look up every minute, but you got any questions? Shout out. I'm still new and learning this whole live stream thing, so let's learn together. That sounds like something your grade 2 teacher would say. Let's learn together today. A little bit more oil on the carrots. It's probably time to think about a bit of salt, but I know that there is still salt in the sausage. I've made it, so I put it in there. So I'm not going to go crazy on the salt at this point. When I make my vegetable stock, I do not salt my vegetable stock because of that. I don't know where I'm going to use it every week, so I want to leave it salt-free. That way I can salt to taste as needed. Just clear the decks here a little bit. Okay, I've got that sweated down the way I want. Garlic, onion, sausage, carrots. That's what we got so far, but that's just the start. Stay with me. Get this out of the pan real quick. It will make sense here in a second. You know, the only problem with this cast iron pan is that it weighs a ton and I can't hold it up forever. All right, so now we need another goodly amount of oil. 1, 2, it's almost 3 tablespoons. And into that 3 tablespoons, with the temperature down as low as I can get it, I'm going in with 200 grams of rice. That's 200 grams of long grain rice. Now, bear with me just a second on the math here. 200 grams of rice, that's 1 cup. To do the proper liquid for that, I need 2 cups of liquid. 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of liquid. 2 to 1 on rice. 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of liquid. All right, that's the first part. So I'm going to need at least 2 cups of liquid. The next thing is this pasta. Plain old ordinary vermicelli. I've got 100 grams of pasta, which is the equivalent of half a cup. All right? 1 cup of rice, half a cup of pasta, 200 grams of rice, 100 grams of pasta, however you want to think about it. I'm going to put it in this bag. This is the weird part. This is totally casserole culture here. So now, I need to take my can and I break the pasta down into smaller segments. I used to be able to do it with this. I'm not sure why that's not working. It used to work. All right, so I'm going to use my fingers. But I'm looking for little, something like that. These are, what is that, an inch? Inch long pieces. Nothing longer than that, because then it'll start to look like weird pasta or weird spaghetti. And I'm just going to break it in this bag so it doesn't fly everywhere. I know it's weird. I know it's really weird. Just bear with me. What is this crazy Canadian doing? I think I got it. Almost. You can see them in there. This is poor man's vermicelli sticks. I'm sure someplace, somewhere, you can buy these pre-broken, but why would you when it's this much fun to break up your own? There. Now that I've got it started breaking up, I can. Yeah, now we're talking. Now we're crushing the right way. All right, so there you go. So this is, again, 100 grams of pasta, which is the equivalent of half a cup. But for pasta, unlike rice, pasta is 1-to-1. So we need a half a cup of liquid. Do you follow that? 100 grams of pasta is half a cup, and it's 1-to-1 on the pasta. So I need 2 cups of liquid for the rice, half a cup of liquid for the pasta. This will become important in a little bit when we start adding back for the absorption method. So since this heat is almost all the way off, here's where you want to make absolutely sure, just like making a risotto, that you get all those grains of rice coated in that oil. That's what you really want to do. Because coating those grains will help them come out as nice, distinct individual grains rather than mush. And then, on top of that, we're going to do the exact same thing with the crushed pasta. I told you it was weird. You didn't believe me. You thought, this has got to be some regular recipe that he's trying to doc. No, I couldn't make this weirdness up. And again, I want to coat all of those little bits of pasta with the oil. Every time I hit them, they shoot all across the counter. Yeah, I probably could have done a better job of prepping my ingredients for this dish, but hey, so what? All right, so all coated in oil nicely. Back in goes all of my sauteed veg and sausage. Those still need, the carrots still need a little bit of cooking time, but don't worry, we're going to get this whole thing done in the oven here in a minute. Let me get these tomatoes open for you. It's important to stop and pause and have more tea. Especially before your tea goes cold. Okay, so that's not the can opener, that's the garlic press. Where's my can opener? Ah, can opener. Yes, I use canned tomatoes because this is Canada. We do not have fresh tomatoes that aren't red baseballs 6 months of the year. But you know what? These tomatoes were packed at their peak of flavor almost in the field. I have no issues whatsoever with using a good quality canned tomato. The brand, I'm not going to tell you simply because it varies. Every now and then I get brand X and then I get brand Y, and it changes, and you just have to taste and test, and it changes. Let me tell you, though, that the big box name retailers don't have magic tomato factories off somewhere. They're coming from the same factories that the brand names are coming from, but they do sometimes change the ratio of what they call tomato solids to liquid and such. So you have to taste them. I don't know. I'm not going to recommend one brand over another because, again, it'll be different in 6 months. So now I want to strain these tomatoes because what I really want for this dish is the juice. Use just a tiny bit of my rinse it out. My cat is screaming. All right, so now that that's gotten coated, I can come up on temperature just a little bit. Get most of this liquid off. By the way, my tomatoes are no salt. I buy no salt so that I'm in control of it. But I don't have any weird, funky spices already in there. Sometimes they sell them doctored up with oregano or peppers or what have you. I don't buy those. So that tomato solid is going to go over here into my salsa recipe. I'm going to save just a tiny little bit over here, not much at all. And now I'm going to get to that fond on the bottom, and I want to deglaze it with a little bit of that stock. This is just a tiny little bit. I'm not going to worry about the measure there. Get that flavor off the bottom. And now here's where we need to measure. So I've got tomato juice. Not nearly enough, of course. Rinse out my pan. And now I'm going to use my stock. There's the 2 cups the rice needs. There's the ½ cup that the pasta needs. I really hope that math didn't confuse everybody too much, but just remember, you got to use twice as much volume for the rice and equal volume for the pasta. Let's bring some other goodies into the salsa party here in a minute. Now, my extra cheap protein, those garbanzo beans, remember them? Those I cooked from dry. I took them from dry because they're way cheaper. All you do is boil them, or soak them overnight, boil them for probably 40-45 minutes till they're tender. If you want them to be particularly blendable, your garbanzo beans, put a little bit of baking soda in the soaking water. It softens them up. I do that whenever I'm making hummus. That's always the little trick for making hummus that I give people. But you cook them till they're as tender or as have as much chew as you want. Sometimes I like them a little bit more chewy, like if I'm going to make falafel, I don't want to cook them all the way to mush. If I'm going to make hummus, I want them all the way to mush. But if you cook from dry, you're in control of that. When you do that from canned, which are 5 times the price, you can't control that. So cook from dry. Please, all you got to do is think a night ahead and soak them. I mean, what, it takes 10 seconds to cover them in cold water and then go to bed. And you got them ready to cook the next day. All right, so that, you see how soupy that is? That is going to absorb all that liquid in the oven. Get this out of the way here. Let's shift gears back over to my salsa real quick. You want to taste your tomatoes to see if they need anything, and right now mine need just a little tiny bit of sugar. I'm going to put in about that much sugar. They need a little bit of acid. If I had lime juice or lemon juice, I'd use it, but I don't, so I'm going to use apple cider vinegar. Just going to give it a little splash there. Again, those are no salt tomatoes, so I'm going to need a little bit of salt in there, about like so. And for a little extra kick, this is my homemade chili mash. It's basically a poor man's version of Tabasco sauce. Let me tell you, it's got a kick. If you guys want this recipe, let me know. Leave me a comment, and I'll give you the recipe for it eventually. But that is like 2 good spoonfuls of Tabasco sauce in there. It's not as aged as Tabasco. I just make this, you know, when I need a jar of it. But this whole jar, which is, I don't know what that is, half a liter, cost me like $0.25. Just no money at all, because it's vinegar, water, and peppers. Nothing else to it. At the rate I go through Tabasco-like sauces, I had to find something cheaper. Just pulsing that salsa down a little bit, but I want to leave some texture to it. I want this to come back up to temperature before I put it into the oven, but make sure you don't scorch anything on the bottom there, of course. I've got one more surprise to go in there, too. Don't you love surprises? So I told you earlier I'm not going to cook this salsa, but I am going to just bring it up to heat. I'm not even going to bring it to a boil. But I do want a little tiny bit of heat in there just to pull the flavors together. Where is my spatula? Huh? One of these days I'll get a kitchen that has the sink on the same side as the camera. It just needs a little bit more chop here, but I want to wipe down the sides really well. I think you guys can hear my cat back there. They think I'm talking to them and they're answering me. They don't quite get the whole internet thing yet. Even though I know cats secretly run the internet, I don't think mine are on that committee. So, salsa out of the machine. What are you screaming about, honey? What is it? I'm talking to the internet. I can already feel it starting to thicken up. Believe me, all of that liquid will get absorbed by the time we're done. Get the salsa out. That beeping is me bringing the oven up to temperature. I've got it at 350. Salsa smells good and salsa-y. Okay, we're up to a nice simmer. Remember, I eased up into it. Don't just crank the heat up because it will scorch on the bottom at the start with that rice floating down to the bottom, sinking down to the bottom. I'm going to get my last surprise. For a little bit of color, I've included some frozen peas because they're beautiful and tasty and cheap and frozen to the bottom of my bowl. Hang on, let me go rinse these out. There we go. Those frozen peas are the main reason I wanted to get this back up to temperature before I went into the oven with it. Now, to get a nice tight seal, since I'm kind of faking a brazier here, I've got a piece of parchment paper wrapped around the lid of one of my Dutch ovens. I do this to get a little bit tighter seal. Again, I'm kind of MacGyver in that solution there. This is now going to go into the oven, like I say, 350, probably going to be about 20 minutes before I check it. It won't take much longer than 20 minutes, probably 25 or 30. You could cook this for 45 minutes or an hour if you kept adding liquid to it, but it'll turn to mush. You don't want mush. You want texture. The whole point of doing the rice and the pasta together is to get a little bit of interesting mouthfeel. So check it at 20 minutes. Go to 25 or 30 if you have to. But let me get a pot holder real quick. And away it goes. Don't worry, I'll show it to you when it's done. So one thing I do love about that cheap generic pan is that it can go straight into the oven. So now we just want to bring the heat up on my salsa, like I say, to pull everything together. Oh, wait, I'm in the wrong pan. I grabbed the non-induction pan instead of the induction pan. I love my old pans, but when I bought them in the late 80s, I didn't know that induction was going to become a thing. So I've still got some legacy pots that are perfectly usable, just not on my YouTube burner. And this is where you really don't want it to boil, because you'll lose all the brightness that you put in there from the vinegar and the fresh chilies, fresh garlic. You don't want to lose that brightness. You just want to kind of nudge all those flavors together a little bit. One of the beauties of Canadian winters is that once I get this gently warmed, I can chill it down just like that by setting it outside on the porch. It will chill in no time at all. Oh, because I'm an idiot for time, I need to set my timer for checking the rice. What are we going to call that? It's not rice-a-what-you-call-it. It's not the brand name. Rice-a-pasta sounds silly. Let's call it 60s lifestyle rice and pasta casserole. There's a mouthful for you. Although I will say that in the 60s, I suspect that garbanzo beans were still considered exotic. Need to come up a little bit warmer, and I gotta go reheat my tea. Excuse me 1 second. No, you are absolutely correct that reheated tea is not nearly as good. In fact, when you reheat tea with milk in it, it's pretty darn noticeable. But needs must, as they say, during the thick of winter. really do need to find a soundtrack, a royalty-free soundtrack that I can play in the background, don't I? Just taste for salt. It's hot enough, just the way I like it. Something landed on my clock. I think we're okay for salt there. If you wanted to put spices in, you could. I'm not a big fan of cumin or coriander leaf, cilantro leaf in this kind of quick pantry salsa is what I'd call it. I like it a little bit simpler than most, but do what you feel is appropriate there. One of the beauties of salsa is that it's nearly impossible to make one wrong. You just make one different. Whew. Yeah, that's hot. Those little bird's eye chilies are, we can get them year-round up here. I guess they're coming out of the hot houses over in Ontario is where you can get them. And I usually can get, even in December and January, a pretty darn good supply of habaneros. Why? I don't know, but somehow somebody, the chili gods have smiled upon cold, wintry Canada when it comes to Thai and habanero chilies. They just did, for whatever reason, they didn't have any at the store yesterday, so that's why I used those Thai chilies. If I was going to do this same batch with habaneros, I'd use like half of a habanero probably, but I'm kind of insane when it comes to heat, so adjust as necessary. So this is as hot as this needs to get. I can see that it's steaming, but not bubbling, boiling, and that is more than enough heat to pull it together. So I'm going to come off the heat. If I can turn this noisy beast off. And before I put it on the porch, I'm going to put it into a metal bowl. The idea being that the metal bowl will conduct the heat and the cold better, and I don't want to put my good pan out on the balcony, or on the porch, I should say. All right. Hope you guys have been enjoying some of the other videos that I've put up. I've kind of done a mix here the last couple weeks or months of these sort of impromptu live unedited things and a few slightly edited things. I just did my 35-cent loaf of basic bread. I did that one on Saturday and Sunday, I guess, so it's down there. This salsa, I think, is down there. Maybe I did this salsa. Maybe I didn't. I can't ever remember what I've done and what I haven't done. All kinds of interesting. So if you guys have time, I do appreciate you going down and checking some of those out. If you get bored watching me live, I'm a little bit more polished when I've had time to edit. Let me go put this out on the porch to cool down a little bit. Watch out. You can't go out. You can't go out. You're an indoor cat. You don't know what the wild is. You can't go out. Oh, sweetie. Hello. Hello. It's okay. What are you doing here? Are you visiting? Hang on. It's okay. Are you visiting? We have a cat visitor. I don't know. I've never seen that one before. It's an orange tabby. I don't know if my girl's attracted to him or her, or if she's just making the rounds, but she looks well fed. She doesn't look lost. What is it about cats? Cats know where the cat houses are. They know good cat people. They can sense them. If she hangs around more than 20 minutes, she'll get dinner. So, of course, that's true of most of my friends. They know to, if they show up around the right time, they're going to get fed. Usually, whether they want it or not, that's the trick, is that you eat what I'm cooking, even if it's an experiment or a test. And some of them have wised up and realized it's not always the best deal. The tasting guinea pigs. 15, 17 minutes till I pull that casserole and check it. I know what I can do. I can read you guys the breakdown, the cost breakdown that I did. How boring is that? Listening to food accounting on YouTube. Okay, here we go. So, again, total price, this is Canadian dollars, so adjust accordingly. But total price was $3.62. That is 77 cents of sausage. I made it myself, but that's about what you could buy, reasonable sausage for in the grocery store, I think. 25 cents worth of rice, 11 cents worth of pasta, 33 cents worth of garbanzo beans cooked from dry. Again, they're a lot cheaper. Let's see here. 44 cents worth of onion, because I made the salsa. That's why I got 2 in there. 26 cents worth of carrot. A buck's worth of peas. Peas are expensive, but I think they make the dish because they get those little pops of sweetness in there. Oh, excuse me, there was 28 cents worth of peas. I was thinking that's a little off. 28 cents of peas, $1 for the can of tomatoes. That's where I'm going with that. Then 9 cents worth of garlic, 13 cents worth of chilies, and 2 cents worth of salt. Yes, I am such a geek when it comes to food costing. I actually include the 2 cents for salt. I suppose if I was a real geek, I'd include the cost of power for the oven or something. But I don't know. I think 20 minutes worth of oven time we can stand. So yeah, $3.62 Canadian, $2.85 US at the moment, or 0.0000001 bitcoins. Take your choice, however you want to price it out. But that's going to feed. That's 4 adult servings of a pretty complete casserole. You've got your protein, you've got your starches, got a little bit of vegetable. I can't make it much cheaper than that, folks. At least not if it's going to taste good. But, if you compare that to, I see, people on the forums talking about, I need cheap food because I'm a poor college student, or I need cheap food because I'm on assistance. And I feel for those people. I really do. You've just got to get off of the convenience food, the fast food, the ready-to-eat, open the package food. You've got to cook from scratch for your sanity, for your health, for your taste buds, for all kinds of reasons. Just learn to cook even the most basic. As you can see, everything I'm doing here, I'm doing in the confines of this space with 1 burner. Yes, I'm using the food processor to speed things along, but I could just as easily do everything by hand with a knife. It would just take a little bit longer. You guys don't want to sit here and watch me chop onions for 20 minutes. Cooking is one of those, it's one of those simple joys. People cooked for a very long time before we even had electricity, so there's ways to get there. You guys got any questions? Well, I love this fact that I can put my hands on this right after I was cooking on it. That's the beauty of induction. I get really good even heat from induction, by the way, when I'm using an induction-ready pan. So I highly recommend them as a cooktop. And if I don't have any friends or friends' kids in college at the moment, but I think most colleges and dorm rooms and such will let kids have these now because they're so much safer than the old-fashioned coil burner kind of things that I know even back when I was in college in the late 80s, they were banned. So I was doing a lot of microwave cooking back then. But yeah, these induction units are relatively safe. Oh, I spilled something on there. I've got to figure out how to get oil. How do you get oil out of a fancy star-studded napkin? I cook. I'm not that good at the cleaning part. All right, when did we start? We started at 6:45. It's we're 55 minutes into it, and quite frankly, if I wasn't talking to you guys, it would have done it in 15 minutes less. So we're talking about a half an hour effort here. You could answer your email. You could go talk on the discussion forums. I'm on Reddit. If you guys go haunt Reddit, you can find me there, and I don't answer questions, but I contribute to a lot of discussions over there. By no means am I the smartest person over there. In fact, I'm probably one of the dumbest. There's some really, really clever and creative cooks on Reddit. So I haunt the baking. Breadit is the bread baking thing. I haunt the bake. I haunt the ask culinary, eat cheap and healthy, frugal, cooking, food. It just, I love the concept of getting ordinary people together and sharing notes. We've had a little bit of an overload, I think, with celebrity cooks. That's kind of the motivation behind doing these live streams without editing. I see a lot of really talented people on YouTube, but there's a lot of editing going on there, and that's not how people cook. People cook live, making messes, chasing cats, drinking tea. That's kind of what I'm hoping to share with you guys as I do these. And please, if you like them, let me know. If you hate them, let me know. Just give me some guidance as to what you guys want to see here. While it does its thing, pardon me for 3 minutes. I'm going to go. If I don't go do a few dishes, I won't have any place to set my plate. So I'll be right back. This is the part that gets edited out later. How's that for reality? This is extra reality television. Watching people do dishes. I'd like to see some of those fancy YouTube chefs doing their dishes. I do mine by hand. I'm half joking about doing dishes in front of you on YouTube, but this kind of goes to my whole real world cooking. You've got to do your dishes too, right? So do them in the 10 minutes it takes while you're cooking. Got a chicken question. Cooking with a whole chicken. So if you got that chicken frozen solid, you do want to bring it up, just like throwing any size bird, whether you're talking a giant turkey or a Cornish game hen. You want to thaw it out under refrigeration slowly if you can. It's going to be a function of how many pounds for how many hours. But you do want to make sure and cook it as soon as it's thawed fully. The most important thing, I think, for cooking a previously frozen chicken is that you're going to have to get some aromatics in there, because the frozen chicken is going to be a little bit duller in flavor. And I tell people the same thing when they're talking about giant holiday turkeys. Do not stuff your birds, turkeys, chickens, or otherwise. Do not put all kinds of gunk in there. Don't put in bread stuffing or anything like that. The only thing you can do is maybe quarter a lemon and a few herbs in there. But that cavity, the cavity on the inside of the chicken, you need air circulation through there. I've actually seen before the technique where they take basically a stainless steel pipe, about the length of a chicken, thin metal, not thick plumber's pipe, but I think it was even something like, see if I can find here, I'll show you. It's something like this ring mold, only a little bit longer, or maybe two of them stacked together. And you prop that up inside the bird so that the cavity of the bird is up and open and air can circulate through there. When you're doing a giant bird, you can take that big plumber's pipe and put it through there, and it conducts the heat, makes absolutely fabulous dry roasting. The idea with cooking a chicken is that you're dry roasting it. You're not steaming it or stewing it. You're dry roasting, and so you want that air circulation there. So yeah, I would say for probably about a 2.5 pound bird, you're going to roast it. I start upside down. I roast it for about 20 minutes at a high temperature, like 4 1/4, and then I flip it over. Maybe put a rasher of bacon or a little bit of butter under the skin, rasher of bacon on top to kind of auto-baste it. And then you're going to cook it for probably another anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, but you want to take its internal temperature. That's the only way to be absolutely sure. You want an internal temperature that's appropriate for the bird. It varies a little bit, again, based on the size. Thighs and legs and down in the bottom part of the bird, you're probably going to go for about I think it's about I pull it at 160 and it coasts to 165, 168. The breast is going to be about 10 degrees cooler than that. But, excuse me, I got a nose full of the salsa. It's not a function of time, because every bird is going to be different. It's a function of internal temperature on the bird. Get yourself an instant read thermometer. That's the only way to be absolutely sure of that. I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Thawing on a totally frozen 3-pound bird, I'm going to guess is going to be, if you put it in the morning, it's going to be thawed by. If you put it in the warmest part of your fridge, the top of your fridge, it'll be thawed easily the next day, if not maybe 12 hours later. If you're going from completely solid, stone cold frozen. Some people will tell you that you could rush that along using water immersion. I don't like that. That takes you too close to the danger zone. I'd much rather see you guys do it cold in the fridge. Safe in the fridge, rather than some other hurried along method. This is why frozen turkeys cost half the cost of fresh turkeys at Thanksgiving, because people have forgotten the time. If you're talking a 12-pound turkey, you're in for 3 days worth of refrigerator time to get that thing thawed. So time is money, as they say. No worries, happy to do it. You guys, pardon me, I'm checking the casserole. I don't want to pull out that big heavy pan until I'm sure it's done. But excuse me just a few more seconds while I go test it. Meow. I know, I hear you. Okay. Just to tell you guys what I've done with it, I pulled the lid off because I want the top to crisp up a little bit. And it just needed a little tiny bit more moisture. I put in literally like another quarter cup total. I just drizzled around the top just to give it that little tiny bit of extra hydration. So we've got about another probably 10 minutes to go on that one. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for it because I'm not smart enough to remember. 10 more minutes, an extra quarter cup of liquid. It's going to vary a little bit, usually based on the rice. That was actually ordinary plain long grain rice. I got another question there on my private channel. You could certainly use a short grain or arborio, but long grain works perfectly fine in this case. You just have to make sure and give it enough moisture. Yeah, I'm going to say probably top of the hour. Like I say, it depends on the other vegetables that I put in there, whether it needs 30 minutes or 45 minutes. The main thing I'm tasting isn't the doneness of the vegetables, though. I'm looking for that elusive al dente mouthfeel on both the pasta and the rice. I want that rice to have just the right amount of chew, not a firm center by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't want it cooked into mush. You cook it into mush and you've got mush. Mush is not nearly as appealing as beautifully fluffy rice. Doing it in that shallow dish, remember I said at the start I didn't want to do it in a deep casserole because when you've got a thicker layer of rice stacked on top of it itself, the bottom layer goes mushy and the top layer kind of fluffs up. That's why you want that pan is only about so deep. What is that? 3.5, 4 inches deep at most. Probably not even that. Probably 3 inches. And that allows that evaporation so that the rice, in effect, it's like making a biryani. It's just going to peel up and fluff up nicely. What are you screaming about? It's the internet. The cat wants to talk to you guys. Hang on just a second. She wants to be a star tonight. Sometimes she doesn't. Come here. I know. Come here. Come here. What are you running away for now? Come here. Come be a star. Oh. Oh, gotta be an internet star. No, you should not have cats in your clean kitchen workspace, but guess what? We don't care. She just wants attention because she thinks I'm talking to her. I'm telling you, secretly, cats control all of the internet. She certainly got me wrapped around her finger. Are you done screaming and yelling, saying hello? It's up there. Look up. Nah. I believe the word you people are looking for is spoiled. I do like the fact that YouTube archives these live streams for you, but what I'm going to start doing, I haven't done this on the last few test runs, but they allow me to download the stream after the fact. Then I'm going to take it onto the editor and chop out some of the really boring parts, like this right now, me talking about cats and random things. And then I'll re-upload them both, but I'm going to do untouched stream, leave that up on the site, and then I'm going to do a condensed version, best of version. I don't know what you'd call it. An edited version, so the people that want to sit here for the full hour watching me chop onions, they can see the bits that make sense. So yeah, you're going to start to see dual listings on my channel, and I'll try to make sure that the thumbnails are the same and that the titles are really obvious, that you guys don't end up having to click through a bazillion different videos. Short and long, short and long. I say that, but on the bread video I did over the weekend, I actually ended up doing it twice. The first time I did it, talked for 20 minutes, and I was trying to convince people it only takes 6 minutes to do. So I did a whole second video, just kind of knocking through it really fast. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Meow, what are you screaming about? Well, no, you can't do that. Translation, cook more tuna. Cook more tuna. YouTube wants to see tuna. Maybe if I cook tuna recipes, all the secret cat overlords of the internet will start watching my videos. All right, I'm going to go give it, it says 4 more minutes, but we were really close. Let me go test it real quick, check real quick. I'll be right back. No. Oh, it still needs it. It's still doing its thing. I might even have to go a little bit longer. In rehearsal, it was only 35 minutes. Rehearsal. I've made this thing a bazillion times. It's funny when you go back and start thinking through your recipe book, what will and won't make good videos, and you kind of think you know how long something took, but when the rubber hits the road, it's 3 cups of tea instead of 1 cup of tea. What else can I show? Oh, I got to go get the salsa off the patio. It's probably chilled by now. Hang on 1 second. Not quite stone cold, but you can certainly tell that the outside is chilled. Just going to start and go right back on the patio for just a few more minutes. This is what minus 12 will do for you. So obviously, in this case, I used a little bit of sausage to start. There was 300 grams of sausage for 4 servings, 4 people. You could absolutely make this vegetarian. You could absolutely do mushrooms instead of sausage at the start. You're just going to need a little bit more oil, of course, and you're going to need to season a little bit more heavily, not just salt. But if I was going to use mushrooms, I'd go pepper, sage, or fennel is one direction. Maybe if you want to go Italian, you could go oregano and garlic, a little bit more garlic. You could go Tex-Mex with cumin and paprika and different kind of chili. That's the whole point of this, is that it's starches and protein put together with interesting bits in between. So you could go any direction you wanted. And that includes absolutely going vegetarian. I do vegetarian cooking about, out of 7 nights, I eat vegetarian probably 5 of them, if that gives you guys some kind of indication. And I've always said that it's not about saying no to meat, it's about saying yes to vegetables. Embrace the vegetables, embrace them for what they are. Don't try to turn squash into steak, because it's never going to be. But eat more of squash in its natural state, or it's in a recipe suited for squash. And indulge in the carnivore urges a little less often. It's good for you, saves you money. And really, if you do embrace cooking vegetables for vegetables, you will end up not missing the meat that much. All right, let me go. I'm going to pull it, whether it's ready or not, and we'll discuss how much longer, if any, it needs. Watch out, watch out, watch out. Okay. 1 pasta and rice casserole. In a perfect world, if I wasn't making a YouTube video, I probably would have turned the broiler on a little bit longer, but this, as you can see, is hydrated up perfectly well. All that liquid is absorbed. Maybe it wants another 5 minutes at most. If you wanted to do kind of an interesting sort of twist on it, you could certainly do a Parmesan topping on the top and grill that off. I've seen recipes with cream in them, but I'm not really that much of a fan on the cream front. But as you can see, we've got a little tiny bit of sausage stretched out to meet the demands of 4 hungry people. I'm not going to dive into this right now because it's just too bloody hot, quite honestly. But there you go. That is my old school 1960s sausage, rice, pasta, whatchamacallit alternative with a little bit of extra garbanzo. Oh, those garbanzos are just perfectly cooked. Check a carrot. Yep, just inch up to being done. Don't go overboard and leave it in there for an hour, because I'm sure you don't need an hour. I hope you guys like this. I hope you try it, or try something like it. It's a technique as opposed to a recipe. Any more questions, I will happily answer them. If you, I'll leave the stream on for a little bit longer since I can edit it out later. And while this cools down, you guys can certainly leave me some questions down below in the comments, or you can email me, or you can go to my website, which is up here in the corner. If you haven't, please do subscribe, and because that helps me keep doing this for you. The ads that are running on one side or the other, they throw a few pennies in my coffer, so thank you for watching those and bearing with me through that. Now, I'm going to let this cool. I'll be over at the computer for another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll edit it down. You'll see it up tomorrow if you want to see the greatest hits. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll talk to you soon.